Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss.
Also, the judge in Blake Lively's case just slapped down their psychopathic...
Blake Lively was absolutely furious when the judge played the leaked audio in court. And honestly, she kind of had it coming.
And I used to work in all kinds of studios. This show now, for 15 years, we've recorded thousands of studio and live interviews, many other things. And not once have the people responsible for recording just...
She and Ryan Reynolds did everything in their power to bury this recording, getting podcast canceled and trying to keep it under wraps. But it looks like fate is on Justin Baldoni's side now, and Ryan Reynolds isn't getting off easy either. March 4th, 2025 will go down as the day the courtroom turned into a comedy show, with Judge Louis Lyman absolutely demolishing Blake's legal team. Blake probably walked in there thinking she could use her Hollywood clout to intimidate everyone, but instead, she left feeling completely crushed. And the best part? She had a total meltdown right there in the courtroom.
You could tell us about a little bit of a mess that I gather you've been involved in.
Oh, yeah. I know where you're going with this one.
Do you have notes on it?
Oh, yeah. Those are the two things I said to myself. This could come up.
Also, the judge in Blake Lively's case just slapped down their psychopathic request for 2.5 years worth of every message that Justin Baldoni and Justin Heath and the PR agents have ever sent to everyone.
It got so bad that even her own lawyers seemed embarrassed, because by that point, they must have realized just how ridiculous this case really was. Blake and her team walked in acting like they were about to deliver the final knockout to Bond's case, only to have Judge Lyman look at their outrageous request and hit them with the legal equivalent of, "Are you serious?" I mean, how humiliating is it for a federal judge to roast you in open court? It's like the judge was trying to be nice, but really, it was a total burn. But here's the kicker. The disaster doesn't end there. Thanks to the judge's ruling, the next hearing will have a live audio feed. That means the whole world gets to witness Blake's legal mess unfold in real time. Get ready for front row seats to Blake's public humiliation. And honestly, I can't wait for the moment when Blake realizes she's totally played herself. There's going to be no PR spin, no carefully crafted TMZ leaks, just the cold, hard truth blasting through the speakers. This is exactly the level of humiliation she deserves. She thought she could walk into that courtroom and demand the most ridiculous subpoenas in legal history, but instead, she got shut down in the most brutal way possible. Now, let's break down just how insane Blake's demands were. It's almost impressive how far she went with this delusion. Her lawyers had the nerve to ask for 2.5 years worth of Baldoni's phone records, texts, location data, doctor visits, and who knows what else. It's like she was auditioning for a role as a full-time stalker. Can you even imagine walking into court with a straight face and asking for literal GPS tracking data on someone for over 2 years? Blake, what is this? The FBI. And the judge wasn't having any of it. His response was simple. You obviously cannot do that. That's it. No complex legal jargon, just straight up, this is absurd. No legal justification, just pure nonsense, and Judge Lyman torched it immediately. And here's the thing. Let's say Baldoni had been running a smear campaign, which, spoiler alert, he wasn't. This whole mess allegedly started in August 2024, so why on earth is Blake demanding records from as far back as 2022? Someone explain that to me like I'm 5. It makes no sense. It's like suing someone for defamation in 2024, but demanding to know what they were texting their Uber driver in 2022. The math is not mathing, and even the judge was over it. He called Blake's subpoena overly intrusive and disproportionate, which is just a fancy way of saying, are you actually okay? Blake wasn't asking for evidence. She was asking for a government surveillance program to track Baldoni's entire life. The judge saw through it, and now the public will too. Remember that live audio feed on Thursday?
Justin Baldoni universe, a judge is allowing the internet to join court. Not entirely for the whole court case, but for this Thursday, we'll be sharing live audio, not video, just audio of what goes down. We can get a real tone for what the judge is thinking. And speaking of thinking, we're also going to discuss Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni, what lawyers are saying.
And Ryan Reynolds' powerful super agent appeared on a podcast explaining why he believed Blake Lively instead of Justin Baldoni is how he called it. And then something odd happened. the podcast didn't get recorded. Neither the audio nor the YouTube video, both just miraculously didn't get recorded. Well, turns out it did, and we got the audio.
It's going to show just how desperate and delusional Blake's case really is. And now, the best part, Blake's absolute meltdown in court. Witnesses inside the courtroom said she physically tensed up, started whispering furiously to her legal team, and was visibly shaking as she realized her plan was crashing and burning in real time. Honestly, good. This entire case was built on smoke and mirrors, and now those mirrors are shattering right in front of her. The judge's ruling was so brutal, so humiliating, that Blake's legal team tried to spin it as a win in the media. How embarrassing is that? Getting obliterated in court and still trying to act like you won. It's like getting dunked on in basketball, face planting on the floor, and then standing up like, yeah, I totally meant to do that. No, you didn't.
Request to the extent it said all documents related to blank, and they just wanted the phone records, and the court said no. The court said that could include therapists, doctors, friends, colleagues, business people. It's
live with Ryan making jokes, hitting back. I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is this a bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
Yeah, well, I think this was the equivalent of a swing and a miss, right? I think they went for a home run. They make a big swing and they completely miss the ball. I think they're going to get sent back to the drawing board. This is not going to be the end of it.
Here's where it gets even worse for Blake. The absolute soul-crushing humiliation when the judge cited Blake's own lawsuit against her, proving that her request made no sense legally. She contradicted herself so badly that the judge used her own words against her. That's next-level self-owning. You literally can't make this level of stupidity up. And where was Ryan Reynolds during all of this? Nowhere to be found. The man who loves tweeting, joking, and making viral moments suddenly turned into Casper the Friendly Ghost. The second things got real. I guess he was too busy pretending to be Deadpool to show up for his wife's legal disaster. He let Blake take the full public embarrassment alone, and honestly, I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to be associated with this dumpster fire either. But instead of admitting defeat, taking the L, and moving on with some dignity, Blake's team doubled down on the stupidity. Instead of fixing their case, presenting actual evidence, or acting like real lawyers, they rushed to file more subpoenas, hoping that if they throw enough legal nonsense at the judge, something will stick.
Work going on.
Keith, there's this issue that's just troubling both of us, and that is, how did Megan Twohey get all these thousands of pages of text messages and emails and other things via a subpoena? We're perplexed by this, and maybe somebody has the answer for us. What's the issue there?
Yeah, so here's the issue. This has always kind of been bothering me in the back of my mind, is that Megan Twohey says in her article that Blake Lively obtained all of these text messages through subpoena. Okay, what's subpoena? You can only issue a subpoena if you have an open legal case. So you have to have a valid legal case. I can't just issue a subpoena to, the New York Times.
Blake just learned the hard way that Hollywood power doesn't work in a courtroom. She thought she could intimidate her way to victory, but Judge Lyman treated her like a toddler throwing a tantrum in Walmart. And now, this legal circus is only going to get worse for her. After today's courtroom humiliation, there's no way out. The world is watching, the legal system isn't buying her nonsense, and her reputation is crumbling in real time. And this is just the beginning. Blake Lively wasn't just desperate in court. She went full-on Hollywood supervillain mode, demanding access to every single detail of Justin Baldoni's life. We're talking calls, texts, location data, work, emails, literally anyone he's ever communicated with. She even wanted his doctor visits like she was about to diagnose him herself. Who even asks for that? Blake thought she was running a top-secret FBI investigation when, in reality, she was just making a fool of herself in front of a federal judge. Let's be honest, this wasn't about seeking justice. This was Blake flailing around hoping to find dirt on Baldoni that just isn't there. She was throwing subpoenas like confetti,
Stands sort of the rights, because clearly Justin's team's going to be out there trying to subpoena Taylor Swift, right? And everybody else that's involved in this case, the non-parties, etc. Who's really going to be subpoenaed, do you think, ultimately in this case?
I think you're right. I think Taylor Swift is going to be subpoenaed for sure. I think I think there's going to be others who have been known, anybody who they know that the PR people talk to, any people that they know that Baldoni talked to regarding PR. What they're going to have to do is come forward with a list of
Handing Wayfarer Studios business records as if she needed to know what Baldoni was emailing his coworkers about 3 years ago. What's next? Blake demanding his Amazon order history? Judge Lyman was having none of it. He took one look at her ridiculous request and called it overly broad and invasive, which, in legal terms, is just a polite way of saying, "Blake, sit down, you sound insane." She was trying to turn the courtroom into an episode of Homeland, and the judge just hit her with a hard reality check. Even after modifying the request, it still got denied. The judge saw right through her desperation from the start. And here's where it gets even funnier. The final ruling only allowed her to access 4 months of records.
Like, yeah, we need these untraceable the campaign. Now, the judge makes a point of like, well, then why do you need 2 years worth? In her own suit, she alleges this campaign started in August. So why the reach for 2.5 years? It was nice to see the judge really sort of acknowledge that. This is the part I'm looking. Lively maintains subpoenas will help identify the larger network of individuals who perpetrated this negative.
Blake walked in swinging for Baldoni's entire digital footprint and walked out with scraps. That's what happens when you try to abuse the legal system to play out your personal vendetta. But oh, it gets worse. Just when Blake thought she could control the narrative, the truth came crashing down. A leaked recording from Ari Emanuel, CEO of WME, exposed the biggest Hollywood cover-up of the year. Turns out, Blake and Ryan Reynolds weren't just innocent bystanders in Baldoni's blacklisting. They were the ones who pushed for it. This is the same guy who runs WME, the most powerful agency in Hollywood, and he was caught on tape admitting that he personally fired Baldoni.
The quality's not great because it was recorded by a journalist in the room, and thank goodness someone did it, because this is the audio Blake and Ryan's agent seemingly didn't want you to hear.
I wonder if you could tell us about a little bit of a mess that I gather you've been involved in.
Oh, yeah. I know where you're going with this one.
Do you have notes on it?
Oh, yeah. Those are the two things I said to myself, this could come up.
He brought notes on it. So this was all arranged.
Because of Blake and Ryan's demands. Let that sink in. They didn't just sit back and watch it happen. They made it happen. And it gets even worse. Emanuel didn't even have the decency to refer to Baldoni by his real name. He called him Baloney. Imagine getting blacklisted by your own agent and then finding out he's mocking you like a middle school bully behind your back. And now Blake's entire victim narrative is officially dead. This isn't just speculation anymore. This is proof. She and Ryan...
Bad situation that Baldoni, whatever his name is doing. And
it's an effed up situation, whatever, Baldoni, whatever his name is doing. Whatever, he's your client. What a scumbag you are.
Ryan Reynolds actively destroyed Baldoni's career. What started as Hollywood drama has escalated into a full-blown defamation case with real consequences. And the worst part? The Freakonomics podcast, where Emanuel made his confession, conveniently lost the recording.
Very interesting. And I was waiting to report on this until we could get the audio from the podcast itself, Freakonomics. But then something happened. It wasn't recorded. Listen to this.
When our excellent editor, Ellen Frankman, comes up to me with a look on her face that I couldn't quite figure out. In retrospect, she looked really ill. She was shaky. Her face was pale. So I asked her, what's wrong? And she tells me that in addition to the audio failures we had earlier, there was another even bigger failure.
But of course, a journalist in the room secretly recorded it anyway. What are the odds of that? Imagine being so deep in a cover-up that an entire podcast episode just vanishes. Blake knew this was bad because after this leak dropped, she went straight into damage control mode. And when Blake Lively panics, she does what any good Hollywood elitist would do. She calls in the CIA. Yes, you read that right. Blake and Ryan just hired Nick Shapiro, a former CIA deputy chief of staff, to handle their PR crisis. At this point, it's not even a legal battle anymore. It's a full-blown government-level cover-up. Blake Lively is out
of the New York Times have opted to use a former top guy at the CIA for PR. So what is he doing for them exactly? Okay. Well, the Variety article goes on to tell us that Nick Shapiro, the former CIA agent, launched a crisis PR firm called 10th Avenue Consulting back in 2015 after a very long tenure in the federal government. Now, in case you're wondering, how
Here hiring actual intelligence operatives to spin her courtroom L into a win. Let's talk about who this guy is. Nick Shapiro isn't just any PR guy. This is the same man who helped push the false narrative that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. That's right, the same guy who straight up gaslit the public about a major political scandal is now running PR for Blake Lively. If that doesn't scream shady, I don't know what does. And let's be real, why does an actress need a former CIA agent to do damage control? Why is a Hollywood defamation case suddenly turning into a full-scale intelligence operation? This is not normal. Blake has officially lost the plot. 1 second, she's crying in court, playing the victim, and the next, she's bringing in a CIA agent to silence the media. You literally can't make this up. The irony is delicious. Blake has spent this entire lawsuit claiming that Baldoni ran a smear campaign against her, and yet she just hired one of the biggest professional smear artists in modern history. Nick. Shapiro's entire job at the CIA was to manipulate public perception, and now he's working to manipulate the public into believing that Blake Lively is the innocent one here. This isn't just PR cleanup. This is deep state Hollywood corruption at its peak. Blake is literally using CIA tactics to rewrite reality. She's not even pretending to play fair anymore. Instead of admitting she has no case, she's doubling down and bringing in a government-level propaganda machine. And let's not overlook the timing of Shapiro's hiring. The very second he's brought in, what happens? The New York Times conveniently publishes a hit piece on Baldoni. Wow, perfect timing, right? The same New York Times that's been infamous for pushing political narratives on command just happens to drop a negative article on Baldoni right when Blake needs it. Coincidence? Not a chance. Blake knows she's losing. That's why she's no longer relying on legal arguments. She's bringing in CIA operatives and using mainstream media to attack Baldoni in real time. And
Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss.
here's the funniest part. None of it's working. At the end of the day, the facts are already out there. The leaked audio proves Blake and Ryan blacklisted Baldoni. The judge's ruling proves Blake's legal requests were completely insane. And now, the world is watching as she desperately tries to spin the biggest courtroom humiliation of the year. We can now all agree that the moral crimes committed by Ryan Reynolds against Justin Baldoni amount to high treason. This isn't a legal strategy. It's a full-blown Hollywood panic spiral. And at this rate, Blake Lively's career isn't just sinking, it's imploding. Blake Lively's downfall is happening in real time, and Hollywood is treating her like a radioactive disaster. Not a single A-list celebrity is standing by her. Where's Taylor Swift? Where's Gigi Hadid? Where's the so-called girl squad that used to parade around supporting each other? Crickets. Absolute radio silence. Anyone else seeing the irony? You'd think with all the feminist empowerment speeches she's given, some of these Hollywood elites would have rushed in to defend her.
Blake Lively is caught in old footage revealing that, yes, her secret plan is to always take control of the movies and lie to the directors to get it.
Nope. They've seen the writing on the wall and know that associating with Blake right now is a career death sentence, and it gets worse. TMZ reports that witnesses are refusing to testify because they fear backlash. If that doesn't tell you everything about how manipulative and toxic Blake's Hollywood influence is, nothing will. People literally don't want to speak on this case because they know that if they say anything that doesn't align with Lively's carefully curated narrative, their careers are over. The same woman who claims she's a victim has Hollywood insiders too scared to testify against her. That's power abuse at its finest. Let's not forget the Candace Owens takedown. Owens didn't just criticize Blake and Ryan, she annihilated them, calling them privileged elites who manipulate Hollywood politics for revenge. And she's right. That's exactly what they did to Baldoni. They used their influence, their connections, and their PR power to try and erase his career. But instead of silencing him, they've just exposed themselves as the most petty, manipulative duo in Hollywood. No amount of I'm sorry will ever undo it. Twitter had a field day. The phrase Blake Lively's Karen moment started trending because, at this point, that's exactly what she is. She's a rich, entitled Hollywood Karen who thought she could control the system. Now she's throwing a tantrum because it's not working. The memes are brutal. People are clowning her courtroom meltdown, dragging Ryan Reynolds for ghosting her when she needed him the most, and roasting her ridiculous legal strategies. Hollywood? Oh.
Let's not bury the lead. Here's the clip.
It's just as important to say, okay, I believe in this, and that's why I'm standing up for it, and that's why I'm not being difficult. And then there are other moments to go like, am I the asshole in the room? Like, what is happening here? I would show up on a set. I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say. But I also knew that like that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character.
Hollywood knows a sinking ship when it sees one. This industry doesn't do loyalty, it does self-preservation. The second someone becomes more of a liability than an asset, they get cut off. That's exactly what's happening to Blake. No one wants to be tied to her legal disaster. The PR nightmare is too massive. At this point, supporting her would be like jumping into quicksand. She's watching her career disintegrate, and there's nothing she can do about it.
It's an effed up situation. Whatever, Baldoni, whatever his name is doing. Whatever, he's your client. What a scumbag you are.
Now, he was your client, too. And so
This isn't some he said, she said situation anymore. The evidence is out in the open. A literal Hollywood executive admitted on tape that Baldoni was fired because of Blake and Ryan. That is career sabotage in black and white. And if Baldoni moves forward with a defamation lawsuit, it could be the final blow to Blake's already crumbling reputation. Here's Blake's worst nightmare. If Baldoni wins, she won't just lose money, she'll lose power. Her Hollywood influence will be gone. No more pulling strings behind the scenes. No more controlling the industry narrative. She'll be reduced to another washed-up actress whose career was destroyed by her own arrogance. And let's be real, that's already happening. The judge just handed Blake her biggest courtroom humiliation yet. He publicly exposed her for filing absurd subpoenas, making ridiculous legal requests, and trying to twist the system in her favor. And where are her Hollywood allies? Nowhere to be found. Even Ryan Reynolds has gone radio silent. If your own husband won't even defend you publicly, that tells you everything you need to know. Ryan Reynolds? He's just a psycho. That's what he is. And let's talk about her latest desperate PR stunt, hiring a CIA agent to clean up her mess. Instead of proving her case with actual evidence, she brought in Nick Shapiro, a former CIA disinformation expert, to manipulate the media.
I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is this a bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
Yeah, well, I think this was the equivalent of a swing and a miss, right? I think they went for a home run.
This is not normal. No other actress in Hollywood history has needed government-level intelligence agents to handle a PR crisis. And if that wasn't shady enough, the second Shapiro came on board, the New York Times suddenly drops a negative hit piece on Baldoni. The timing? Too perfect to ignore. It's painfully obvious that Blake and Ryan are still pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to spin the public narrative in their favor. But here's the problem. It's not working. The facts are already out there. The judge already humiliated Blake in court. The leaked audio already proved her involvement in Baldoni's blacklisting. And now, the live audio feed of the next hearing is going to make things even worse for her. Blake. Lively thought she could manipulate her way through this. She thought her Hollywood connections would protect her. She thought she could throw money at PR firms, weaponize mainstream media, and pressure people into staying silent. But she didn't count on the one thing she couldn't control: the truth. And the truth? It's a disaster for her. This isn't just a courtroom loss, it's a full-blown career implosion. She's burning bridges, losing allies, and exposing herself as one of the most vindictive, power-hungry actresses in Hollywood. This legal disaster isn't over yet, but one thing is crystal clear. If Blake thought this was bad, she better brace herself. Because at this rate, her next round of courtroom humiliation could very well be the final nail in her career's coffin. Subscribe for more updates, because this meltdown is far from over.